friends, welcome to lecture 2. In last lecture we have discussed about the fundamentals of games theory and we have discussed about the settle point and the pure strategy. So if there is no settle point in a game, then the strategy that the players will play will be a mixed strategy, and the game is called a mixed strategy game. That means basically means that there exists a probability of playing different strategy by the player. Now we will discuss how to solve a mixed strategy game. So this is a game which we had earlier discussed. Now in this game, if you try to find out, see, one thing I want to remind you, all of you, whenever you solve a mixed strategy game or whatever game, first thing that you should do is that you should try to find out the saddle point. Only if there exists no saddle point, then only you move ahead. So here in this game, if you try to find out a saddle point, you will see that there does not exist a saddle point. Now this is a mixed strategy game. That means that there is a probability of A playing strategy 1 and there is a probability of A playing strategy 2. Similarly for B, choosing strategy 1 and choosing strategy 2. And we have already, I have said that the probability is in this case, in this particular problem, because it is evenly balanced and the probability is 50%, and I will show you how the probability is 50%. So let's start. So here let us say that B is playing strategy 1. Now if B is playing strategy 1, how much does A gain or lose? Now A's gain or loss will be equal to the number of times A plays this strategy, that is this strategy, and if he plays this strategy, A stands to gain 2. So it will be 2P1 similar plus the number of times A plays strategy 2 and its payoff. This is minus 2 into P2. So if A chooses, I again repeat, if A chooses to play strategy 1, how much does A gain or lose? So if B chooses to play strategy 1, the A's gain or loss will be equal to twice P1 plus minus 2 P2. So it will be like this. So this is 2P1 plus minus 2P2. So this is a equation. If B plays this strategy, 2P1 minus 2P2. Now if B plays strategy 2, what is A's gain or loss? So A's gain will be equal to minus 2P1 plus 2P2, because this is the proportion of time A plays this strategy, he loses minus 2, and this is the proportion of time he plays this strategy, so he gains 2. So it will be minus 2P1 plus 2P2. Now there is a very important concept here. You should understand that there exists a value of the game. Now A is a maximum player. That means A tries to maximize his minimum gain, and his minimum gain will lie at the intersection of these two equations. At the intersection of these two equations. So the minimum that A gains is the value of the game, that is V. So 2P1 plus minus 2P2 is greater than or equal to V. Similarly, these equations will be greater than or equal to V. A stands to gain more than V, or the minimum is V. So A tries to maximize his minimum gain, and his minimum gain is V. So if I equate it to the minimum gain, both this will be equated, and you will find out that P1 is equal to P2. Very easily, if you try out, you can find out P1 will be equal to P2, and we know P1 plus P2 will be equal to 1. The summation of all the probabilities will be equal to the 1. So P1 equal to P2 will be equal to half. Same thing we can do it for the probability of Q1 and Q2 of B playing strategy 1 and strategy 2. So let's do that. So here if A plays strategy 1, B gains 2Q1 or loses minus 2Q2. And if A plays strategy 2, So B gains or loses minus 2q1 plus 2q2. Now A is a player who is a minimax player. So A tries to minimize his maximum loss, and his maximum loss will be equal to V, and minimum loss will be less than V. So again these two equations will be individually less than or equal to V, and the maximum will lie in the intersection of these two equations. And if you equate these two equations, you will get q1 is equal to q2, and the summation of all the probabilities, that is q1 plus q2, will be equal to 1. So q1 equal to q2 is equal to half. So that is what has been shown here. Okay, so this is the algebraic method. This method of solving is called algebraic method. So you get 4 equations, equate these 4 equations, and you find out the values of p1, p2, q1, q2. And you know for certainty, which I have told earlier, that the probability of A playing 1 and 2 and B playing 1 and 2 are all equal to 50%. Okay, now I'll tell you a shortcut method. Every time you don't have to solve these 4 equations and find out the values of P1 and P2 and Q1 and Q2. Shortcut method will be discussing. So this is a payoff matrix as shown here. There's 2 players A and B, both having 2 strategies, and these are the payoffs, and this matrix is payoff matrix. So I want you to solve this. So how to solve this? I'll show you a very simple method. Using this simple method, you can find out the values of P1, P2 and the value of the game. Okay, before that I want to go back and say one thing I missed out. Now, if you want to find out the value of the game, you have to see, once you have found out the P1, P2, Q1, Q2, you can solve any of the 4 equations. So take any equations and solve that equation, and the value that you get is the value of the game. So here P1, 2P1 plus minus 2P2. If I put the value of X, then I get the value as 0. So the value of the game is 0. That means the probability, there is a probability that A will not gain anything and B will also not get anything. So here the value of the game is 0. Okay, fine. So here my objective is to find out the values of P1, P2, Q1, Q2. Okay, my objective is to find out the probability of P1, P2, Q1, Q2 and the value of the game, of this game. Now to find out the probabilities, here we will calculate it in anti-clockwise direction. Remember, we will calculate in anti-clockwise direction. So here first we will find out the row difference. Row difference, if I move in this direction, so minus 2 minus 3 will give you minus 5, but we'll write the mod of that, so that is 5. And here 1 minus 2 will give you 1, so mod of 1 is 1. So 5 plus 1 is 6. So here this value I'll put here, this row difference I'll put here, divided by the summation of these 2 row difference, that is 5 plus 1. So P1 will equal to 1 by 5 plus 1 equal to 1 by 6. And similarly vice versa, 5 will come here and the summation is this one. So 5 by 6. If it is 1 by 6, obviously this will be 5 by 6, because 1 minus 1 by 6 will give you 5 by 6. Similarly for this, we will find out the column difference. So here moving in anti-clockwise direction, 3 minus 1, so that is equal to 2, and 2 minus 2 is equal to 2 minus 2 will give you 4. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So this is 4 by 2 plus 4 is equal to 6, and 2 by 4 plus 2 is equal to 6. So this gives you 2 by 3 and 1 by 3. Take any equations, put the values of the 4 equations, take any equations, let's say 3P1 plus 1P2. So if I put the values of P1 and P2 here, I'll get the value of the game as 4 by 3. So the 4 by 3 is the value of the game. So this is how you solve. This is a shortcut method of solving a mixed strategy game. So try to solve this particular game and find the value of P1, P2, Q1, Q2 and the value of the game. Okay, now this is a very interesting question. In a game of matching coin with 2 players, suppose A wins 1 unit of value and where there are two heads wins nothing, there are two tails. When there are two tails, wins nothing when there are two tails, and loses half unit of a value when there is one head and one tail. So what the question is saying that A wins 1 unit if, when you toss the two coins, if there are two heads, then A wins 1 unit, and if there are two tails, wins 0. If one is head, one is tail, then loses half unit. So first we'll have to find out the payoff matrix. So two players A and B. So if it is two options, either it can be head or tail. So head and tail, two strategies. If it is head, two heads, then A gets 1 rupees or wins 1 rupees. And if it is head tail, loses half. If it is head tail, loses half. If it is tail, wins nothing. So this is the payoff matrix for this particular question. And if you solve this, so minus half minus 1 will give you minus 3 by 2, which is basically 3 by 2, and minus half minus 0 will give you half. So half plus 3 by 2 will give you by half divided by half plus 3 by 2 will give you 1 by 4, and 3 by 2 divided by this summation of these two will give you 3 by 4. Similarly, you can find out Q1, Q2, and you can find out the value of the game, which comes out to be minus 8. Now minus 8 means, so all of you have a doubt that B will always lose. No, B will not lose. In this particular game, you can see that B stands to gain 1 by 8 and A stands to lose 1 by 8. Now this does not mean that A will always lose, and this does not mean that B will always lose. These are basically probability calculations. Okay, there is another beautiful example to explain this mixed strategy. There are two armies, Army A and Army B. Now, Army A is the defender and Army B is the attacker. So Army A has two air bases. One is three times larger than the smaller one, and B can either attack the smaller air base or it can attack the larger air base. Army A can only defend one of them. So Army A can defend the smaller one or the bigger one. Now find out the best strategy for A. Now at this point, I want you to pause this video and try to formulate the payoff matrix. Okay, I think you are finding it a little bit difficult. No problem, I'll help you with this. So listen carefully. There are two air bases of Army A. One is small, one is 3 times bigger. A can defend that smaller air base or the larger air base, and B is the attacker, can attack the smaller air base or the larger air base. Now obviously, if B attacks the smaller air base and A defends the smaller air base, then A gains 0 and B gains 0. And similarly, if B attacks this larger air base and A defends the larger air base, then similarly it will be 0. But if A defends smaller and B attacks the larger, then B stands to get 3 and vice versa, it will get 1. So this will be the payoff matrix. So if A defends the smaller air base and B attacks the smaller air base, both survive, so the value will be, payoff will be 0. Remember, we are calculating the payoff, not the value of the air base. That means the profits. And B attacks the larger air base and A defends the smaller air base, so A loses 3. And B attacks the smaller air base and A defends the larger air base, so A stands to lose -1, and both survive. If A defends larger air base and B attacks larger air base, both survives and the payoffs will be 0. So you can solve this problem by the shortcut method, and the solution will come like this. Value of the game will be -3/4. That means B stands to gain 3/4. 75% chance that the B will win. So I hope the mixed strategy and the algebraic method and the shortcut methods are clear to you. Try to solve more problems associated with these methods, and I'm surely if you practice 2-3 games you will be able to pick it up the procedure. So thank you for listening and watching this video.